Okay.
Now let us see how to use attributes in local classes. Then we will see global classes. If you know local class concept, global class is nothing. Okay, so let's learn more programmatically what to do. What is the syntax to define any class? Class, I'm just using class name, definition, end class. Check the syntax, anything wrong, nothing is wrong. So an empty class is of no use. Class should contain some components. So we are going to put some attributes. Attribute is one of the component. If I declare an attribute with the keyword data, this is known as instance attribute. This is known as instance attribute. If I check the syntax, you will get an error now. If you check the syntax, you will get an error now. The error is there is no public, protected or private section in the statement in line number 6. Line number 6 is instead of this statement, XAP is expecting a statement called as public, protected or private section. So what is this? Any object orientation program, why we are going with object orientation, what is the difference between procedural and object orientation, slowly we will be covering. But because of these features we are going with object orientation. What are the features we have in object orientation is encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, I will give the videos to you. I will give the video. This class video will give. Okay. Sudhir, what happened? Yeah. है क्लास, अब मैं कॉल करूंगा तुम्हें, ठीक है? Polymorphism and interface. These are the features of any object orientation program. It is clear? I'll give the videos to everyone. You can refer. I don't want the time to be wasted. Okay, so let's keep silent so that everything recorded and you can take it up. Right? So what is encapsulation? It's nothing but encapsulation is a feature of an object orientation program by using which you can secure the components of your class. You can provide the security for the component of your class. You can provide the security or secure features for the components of the class. So using encapsulation, you define using the encapsulation, you define the boundary for the components of the class. That is, what components are accessible outside the boundary or within the boundary of the class. Is this clear? So generally use encapsulation to provide the security to components of a class. Like example, you have an attribute called as amount. Amount is private, protected, public. Amount is always like private. It belongs to you only. It is clear? So I cannot make it public. Like this, you have to make sure what attributes should be protected in what way. No one is going to tell you in real time. You have to decide and you have to think on yourself. It is clear? So in ABAP objects, encapsulation is achieved using visibility section or section. There are 3 types of visibility sections in ABAP, starting with public section. Starting with public section. What do you mean by public section? Components are accessible anywhere, that is outside or inside, also outside the class, or else it can be inside the class also. Inside the class means within the class. The next section is protected section. That means components are accessible within the same class or in the subclass. The third one is private section. That means components are accessible only within the same class. Let's see how this visibility is going to affect my components in a local class. So in Java like subject, it's not mandatory to have a visibility, but in ABAP it is must, you have to provide any one visibility. Okay, so here you cannot skip the visibility for the component. So being a first class, I'm making the visibility as public, but in an SAP world, public attributes are violation of the OO principles. So you should not make an attribute as public. Being a first class, let's learn what is public. Then we will see what is the rules to maintain, why we should avoid public. Okay, so I define one attribute, data I1 type I, data I2 type, sorry, I am defining one more attribute which is starting with keyword class-data, also known as static attribute, because static attributes are defined with the keyword class-data. Check the syntax, there is no issues. Why? Because already defined a visibility for the components. Okay, let's see what are the rules to access these components outside. You are provided a boundary, but how can I access this outside the boundary? What are the rules? If it's an ABAP, what you do is you write I1 3 type I, and you can directly access this. If it is ABAP, you can write like this, and you can directly access this outside anywhere in the program. That means it's not secured. It is not secured. Anyone can access, anything can be done to this. It is clear. So you can check the syntax, no issues here. But if I want to access the same thing like this, system doesn't allow me, because I1 is not a part of any procedural program. It is part of an object-oriented program, which is nothing but a part of a class. Now if you want to access I1, that should be something which I1 knows. If I want to access some information of here, someone has to know you, right? If I want your information, that is through how? By killing you? No, right? Through your friends or someone who knows you, right? Same, if you want to access I1, I1 should be accessed only by using some approaches. I1 belongs to a class. So if you want to access I1, what is the rules we have to follow? Let us see that. If you want to access instance attribute, what you have to do? We always require instance of class. If you want to access instance of attribute, we always require instance of class. What do you mean by instance of class? Is nothing but object. There's nothing but object. So the syntax to define an object, you have to declare an object. You can give any object name, type reference to class name. Okay, and to create an object, you have to use the keyword create object, and it is clear. I don't want you to write, because we can never complete oops in 5 days. Okay, basic part. So time will come, I'll ask you to write that time. This much clear? So how to create an object? You have to use the keyword create object and object name, and that object should be defined. It's not a normal variable, it is a Reference variable. You can call this as a reference variable, or else you can also call them as what? Object. It's not a normal variable, it's a reference variable. Reference variables are referred to a class or interface. Okay, later on you will see how to refer to interface also. Is this clear? Then to access the instance component, you have to follow the syntax object name hyphen greater than. This symbol you have to use if you want to access any attribute. Forget about the instance. Any attribute you can access by using this. To access the static attribute, we require the class name. Just class name you have to use. It's very simple actually. Class name equal to greater than you have to use. But using this, what you can access? Only static attributes. Only static attributes. Even if you want to access a constant attribute, you can access by using class name. Even if you want to access a data type, going forward we will see that you have to use class name only. Okay, we will see different cases where I'm going to use a class name. Are they clear? So this symbol you have to use for what? Instance attribute, and this symbol I have to use for static attribute, and these symbols in SAP world we call them as component selector. We call them as component selector. Okay, so now let us see what to access. Before you access, always you have to think one thing is first check the visibility. I1 is at what level? Public level. Visibility or public level both are same term. So I1 is at what level? Public level or public section. Public means I can access outside. Yes, I can access outside. What it is at what level? I'm sorry. Visibility is different. I'm sorry. I1 is at what level? Instance level. I'm sorry. Okay, visibility is different. I1 is at what level? Instance level. Instance level means you need what? Instance of the class. So how do you create an instance of a class? Nothing but an object. Create object, give an object name. If we check the syntax, system will tell you that obj is unknown. It is neither declared with the data keyword. So I will tell the system obj is nothing but it's not a normal variable, it's a reference variable referring to the class. Clear? Very simple code I have written. Define a class, maintain the attribute. To access the attribute, if it is an instance attribute, create an instance of a class which is nothing but an object. To create an object, the syntax is create object, object name, and define the object by using type reference to the respective class name or interface name. Interface name we'll see later. Now what I want to access is I1. So I1, see here when I press Control space bar, you can see both. Why? What is an object? Object is nothing but it's a clone of a class, or else it is an instance of a class. Whatever is there in a class, an object can always see. It is not hidden from an object. Whatever is there in a class, an object can always see. It is not hidden from a class. It is clear? Fine. So I can access I2, but I will follow the rules. Using the class name, can you access instance attribute? When I press Control space bar, I cannot see I1. I can only see static level components. Okay, so I2. Very basic program I'm writing here. We don't write this kind of program. Initial level you're learning, so I will add up more lines in next after 2 classes. Check the syntax. Anything wrong? So if you execute, what you will get? 100 and 200. So why I need an object orientation approach? Why not a procedural? One reason you can clearly see here is I'm keeping a breakpoint in line number 13 and I'm executing. So object is not yet created. You can see that object is not yet created. Object is still null. Null means there is no reference, no memory given to it. It is still initial. Object is not yet created. Object is not created means memory is not assigned to what? The attributes. Memory is not yet loaded into the memory. Attributes are not yet loaded into the memory. But in case of an procedural approach, what happens? Even though you don't use it, it is loaded into the memory. So when you go with object orientation, the advantage is the memory management will be better compared to a. It is clear which one you need, when you can control also. So when you go with the procedure, what will happen? There is no proper memory management, I can tell, because all the variables or whatever data object is defined, that will load into the memory immediately when you execute a program. But here in this case, only when you press create an object, then only the attributes will be loaded. What is the current value? 0. Data type is integer, so integer default value is 0. Are you clear? Now I put the data here and I print, you'll get 100, 200. So no, there's no big deal on this. You know what is what. Any doubt till this? Just check the code and let me know. Syntax to define class is clear. Syntax to define instance attribute is clear. Syntax to define static attribute is clear. Syntax to create an object is clear. Syntax to access an instance attribute through an object is clear. Syntax to access a static attribute through a class name is clear. Clear? Okay. Okay, fine. Now you see what I'm going to do is I am going to create one more object. Okay, then let us see what is the behavior. Let me make this as object 1, object 1. I will create one more object. This you have to understand. If you understand this concept, then you can easily answer what is static and what is instance. See this. I am creating one more object. What is the output of line number 27 and 28? What is the output of line number 27 and 28? What is the output of line number 27 and 28? First. What is the output of line number 27 and 28? Ashok, what can you type it off? What is the output of line number 27 and 28? Fast, yeah. Someone tell some answer at least.
11 and
28. 28. कुछ तो बोलो. Let it be wrong also. Are you calculating or what? No, na. 11 and 22 is fine. That is the current values.
100 is 28 is 100.
100 and 22 again. 100 and 22. Okay. Why 122 is what we have to see that. Okay. Try to understand how an object memory assignment happens for a static attribute and a instance attribute. This is very important. What you did is you created an object. How to create an object? Create object obj1. The moment you created an object, what happens is a memory is given, a memory is being created, and in this memory, a memory is being created, and in this memory, the attributes are loaded. What are the attributes? I1 and I2. So they are loaded when you create an object. So what are the default values of I1? 0. What is
0.
default value of I2? 0. Now if you immediately print, you will get 0, 0 only. Okay, and this is an address. Address of object you can put like this. HXXX. Is this clear? And this is the address value. It is the address name actually. Assume that this is H1 and this is H2. Address. They are addresses. Actually it point to I1, I2, but I'm still writing it separately, H1 and H2. Now what you did is, using this object, you access the attribute I1, true or false, and you change the value to 100. So address, in an address you can have only one value at a time. You can have only one value at a time. So this is overwritten from 0 to 100. Similarly, what you did is, you use the class name and you have overwritten the current value of 0 with what? 200. So this will be overwritten with what? 200. And you printed. So the output it came is nothing but 100 and 200. What is the output? 100 and 200. Similarly, you created one more object. Whenever you create any object or instance of a class, again a memory will be created. Again a memory will be created. And in this memory, the attributes will be loaded. In this memory, the attributes will be loaded as usual, how you did in the previous. But the point to remember is, whenever you create an object, a new address will be given to the instance attribute. A new address will be given to the instance attribute. A new address will be given to the instance attribute. A new address will be given to the instance attribute. But when it comes to static attribute, it always refers to same address. It always refers to same address. And in that new address, it will always have the default value. What is the default value of I1? 0. And what is the current value of I2? No memory is been assigned. It will always refer to same memory. So what was the previous value in that memory? 200. So if you go and print right now, immediately you get the answer as 0 and 200. Then what you did is, using the instance of this second object, you have changed the current instance attribute value I1 and with value 11. So this I1 is overwritten, the I1 address value is overwritten with what value? Current value is 100. 11. Then what you did is, you have used a class name to override the static attribute value, and you made us 22. Address is same. This is overwritten with what? 22. Address is same, so even this will override with what?
22.
Okay, remember these two are not different things. Okay, only to make a visibility in that way I am writing here, or else both will refer to same memory. Both will refer to same memory only, but diagram wise I am showing you different, but from compiler wise they will refer to same memory. Then what you did is, first you printed the current object value. So in the output what you got is 11 and 22. 11 and 22. Then you printed previous instance I1 value. What is the previous instance value of I1? Still 100. But in the class level, the static attributes are maintained. So what is the value of static? Current value? 22. So you get an answer as 122. How many has a doubt on this? Let me know. So what you have to understand here is, for a static memory, for a static address, the memory allocation happens only once in its lifetime. When is a question mark right now? Because we have to talk about class loading concepts and all those things. Once we go to constructor, it will be, everything will be clear. As of now, you have to understand the memory assignment happens for a static attribute only once in its lifetime, whereas for an instance attribute, every time you create an instance. Every time you create an instance. Is this clear? Okay. From interview point of view, he will ask you which attribute is you prefer and explain why. Do you prefer static or do you prefer instance? Why? Or don't tell that, my business will tell. As in many people tell. As for the business, I will use. Which attribute you have to, is asking, I don't, which attribute you have to prefer and why? Why instance? If you told me instance, why instance? Many are telling instance, but why instance? See here, unnecessarily should not create an attribute as instance, because you created an instance of a class. Assume that you are having 5 instance attribute in that class. Like this, for some reason you created one more object of the class, but you're only using only one attribute out of 5. Like this, you create 10 instances of the class, you're using only first attribute of that class, but remaining 4 you're not using. If you're not using remaining 4, what is going to happen? All 10 instances will have the memory, irrespective of whether you're using or not. Unnecessary memory is getting wasted. It is clear? Performance wise, best is static attribute, because for static the memory assignment happens only once, whereas for instance, every time you create an object. So whenever you create an attribute, blindly you cannot make a decision. You have to think whether this will be used multiple times, whether this require multiple instance values or single value in all the entire program. How do you make this decision is, if I need a value across my program, same value, then always go with static. If you need different values in different instances, then you always go with instance attribute. One best example which you use in SAP world, like a grand total. Don't think of ALV grand total every time if you talk, okay? A grand total is nothing but, there may be programs where you keep on accumulating the data in a variable till end of the program. That kind of attribute will go as what? Instance. Why not static? It's wrong, na? It will not go instance, na? If you make instance, means what will happen? At a very simple, yeah, you try to simulate your sales program here, you'll understand. Sales has, you like this now, item 10 price is 100, item 20 price is 200. This is for one sales document ABC. Okay, another sales document you will have XYZ. Okay, item 10 you have 100. Okay, all the items, item 30 I have 500. It is clear? Now the grand total is based on what? Based on this field, na? Amount only, na? So what I do is, I will define an attribute called as but what type of attribute this will be? Data type, whatever you want you can take. Whatever attribute it will be. Static. Why static? Why static means, and one more thing, I will take one more attribute here, subtotal. Subtotal will go as what? That will be instance. That will be instance. Why instance means, here you have how many instances of sales? 2 instances. One for ABC and one for XYZ. Subtotal of ABC is different, and the calculation of this is different. Agree or not? So in this instance the subtotal value is, and in this instance the subtotal value is, if I ask you get me a subtotal value of sales document A, you look where? In which instance? ABC. Or XYZ, you look where? But I never asked you get a grand total of ABC. Our grand total means all subtotals. Is this clear? Then you have to sum up all the instances. To sum up all the instances, you need to have a common variable which you can use in all the instances, like a grand total. So I can use in this instance, right, and this instance. Why? Because for a static attribute, memory will assign only once. Next time onwards, it will always have the same memory. You create n number of objects also, it will not have the new memory. This is one very best example. If you ask me to write big program, I only follow OOPS in my company. I don't even write a single line of procedural approach. Okay, I'm very strong with putting the data, following all the OO principles and all these things. Very strong. Not from today. I'm writing from 2010 onwards. Okay, so pinpointedly I can identify if my junior or someone is writing. I can clearly identify. I can tell him also what is the mistake. I will see his object, I will scan his program, I will see how many instances having, then I'll make a decision. There are many people who keep only one instance. Unfortunate, but if you design in a proper way, you can end up with multiple instances also.